Collectors Cast, everyone. I'm your host, Clint the Collector, and here's your other host, Mike Bloski, the most interesting man nobody's ever heard of. We're here and we're doing military collecting today, Mike. And now I know this is something close to your heart. You love this stuff.
Yeah, I love military stuff. Always been a sort of a self-proclaimed historian on wars, and especially the First and Second World War. I'm not a, type of person who's specific to every date and stuff like that, but I'm very specific to stories and events and issues of the war and equipment.
I'm going to pose that even we're close in age, but you're 8 years older than me. And as a kid in the 60s, in the late 60s, that agenda was pushed so heavy. There were so many war movies, so many war toys.
Yeah.
And by the 70s, when I was kind of playing with stuff, the military stuff had died way back. Everybody was more about peace and love, and you can't protect your country with flowers, but that's people just wanted to dial it down, and it just wasn't as big when I was a kid.
Well, yeah, very much so. Even the influence of cars from military, from the earliest fighter jets of the Korean War era, and that, right, were very much a lot of that design was things that looked like they were military.
Well, let's face it, a lot of the things we have in everyday life come out of military invention.
Yeah.
That's where we get a lot of our technology, because they throw so much money at that sort of development that it ends up, all the best minds are working on it.
And one of the coolest things that I've ever done is that I went to the museum in Tillamook, Washington. And it's this...
Wait, Oregon, isn't it?
Oregon, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Oregon. I don't even know where I was. And
our producer did think Tillamook was near Seattle.
Oh, yeah.
So that's probably where, the young guys, they implant bullshit in our minds.
I was thinking of the casino.
Yeah. See, that's right.
That's Tulalip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just doesn't look great on me.
That's Grey Wolf Lodge you're talking about.
Yeah.
Anyway, Tillamook, the military museum.
The military museum. And it's in a giant hangar that housed blimps. So you can imagine how huge it is.
The Zeppelin's younger cousin.
Absolutely. But the crazy thing about that is when it was built, World War II era, is because of all the wood in Oregon, of course. It's made out of wood. And just to see that structure is absolutely amazing. But here's something that I was just, still, it's a highlight of my life. The guy said to me, hey, we're working on restoring something right now. Would you like to see it? He said, you're going to be one of the first people to see it since it's been painted. And I said, sure. So he takes me into this room, and they've got some drop cloths down. And what they had just finished restoring was what they considered to be the first ever drone.
Wow.
And the Navy was in charge of developing the drones. And I actually have a picture of me beside it, and I'm going to pass that picture on to Aiden so we can put that on the website.
Collectors Cast,
pretty amazing.
Instagram page at the Collectors.
And I'll tell you what, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see it on your screen right now.
Yes.
Oh, there's some work for the editor.
Wow.
Oh, there it is. Hey, look at that.
Absolutely.
It's floating there.
Yeah. So another crazy thing
is... back to that first ever drone. What era, what year roughly would that have been?
I believe it was 41.
41. They were trying to make an unmanned aircraft already.
Yes.
And would it have been flown by remote control somehow?
Well, some primitive electronics, I guess.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Who knew they were doing it back early?
Yeah, they had that idea, and the Navy was in charge of that division of developing a drone.
If I was Johnny Carson right now, I'd say, I did not know that, Ed. Anyway.
Yeah.
But you know what? I think we're going to... you know a lot about military, and I know a little bit being a collector, but I think the guy that we got coming on is going to know a lot more than either of us.
Fantastic guest we have coming on today.
Yeah, why don't you tell us before we bring him on, what's the history here? You went to the Chilliwack Military Museum.
Military Museum. I spoke with a gentleman, Jim Harris, and he is everything that the Chilliwack Museum is in downtown Chilliwack. And he's going to be our guest, and we're going to talk about the museum and some of the stuff they have in there. And yeah, like we always say, when it comes to a collection, what better places there to find a collection of stuff than at a museum.
There you go. So we'll be back with the guests in just a few minutes. You're watching the Collectors Cast.
See you soon.
Welcome back to the Collectors Cast, everybody. We've got our special guest with us. Please say hello to Mr. Jim Harris. How you doing, Jim?
I'm doing just fine.
And who have you brought along with you here?
I brought Sam.
Hi, Sam.
He's my registered service dog.
Oh, well, he seems like a pretty well-behaved little fella.
He's an Australian Labradoodle, 3.5 years old now.
Oh, okay. Very nice. Well, I'm sure he'll behave while we talk to you for a few minutes.
Oh, yeah.
When you go down to the military museum in Chilliwack, Sam is like the official greeter.
Oh.
When you walk in.
He's on active duty then.
Oh, yes.
Nice.
People
well, as long
love
as
him.
he doesn't do any active duty in the shop here.
No, he's done it. He did it on my lawn.
So you, sir, are the curator of the Chilliwack Military Museum, correct?
No, I wish I was. I'm not that good.
Oh.
I'm the founder.
The founder.
Yeah.
He wishes he was the curator, but he founded the whole darn thing. Nice.
Jim, could you first, just before we get ahead of ourselves a little bit, Jim, could you just tell us and our listeners about your military service? And before we start, we just want to thank you
Yes.
for your service in the military. And
Thank you very much for your service.
It's
Jim.
a privilege to have you here.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, veterans do appreciate being thanked. And I served 34 years in the Royal Canadian Engineers. And our job was to enable our troops to move and try to obstruct the enemy so they couldn't move. And I think we were pretty good at that.
So you
That sounds like a lot of blowing stuff up.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, you're either laying a bridge down or blowing one up, right?
Yeah. Or making friends and then killing them on order.
Oh,
Yeah.
my goodness. Well, we really do thank you for that service. So obviously well-versed in militaria in general. How long have you been involved with the museum now?
I stood the museum up in the year 2000. And
Okay.
We've been in a couple of places. One was on Hocking Avenue. We spent probably 18 years there. I was the president for 17 of those.
Mm-hmm.
And then my health took a downward turn. It's
I'm
recovered now, and I'm doing much better.
Nice.
And we've got a new president. He's also the president of the Canadian Military Education Center.
Okay.
And they've just recently had to move out of the Chilliwack area because Border Services took over their building. A matter of who had the biggest, deepest pockets, I'm afraid.
I
Yeah.
don't think we give enough respect to our military in general, giving them places to, that should be something almost government funded, that you have a place to go learn about
Oh,
it.
that
would be nice.
Yeah, that facility where Border Services is now. No slight to the Border Services people, but they provide us a great service as well. But I loved that place, Jim.
Mm-hmm.
Like there were days where I would just go down there. If I was feeling a little bit blue, I'd go down to that museum. It was fantastic. I think I gave 4 or 5 birthday parties with my kids
Oh, wonderful.
in that museum.
I bet they enjoyed that.
Oh yeah, they did. That was a great place.
Now, was this the one that was on the Army base
Yes.
too? Where
Yeah.
you had the big tank outside there?
It's not my museum, but it was a fabulous museum. And the president of our society now was a member and a high-ranking officer in that museum that was on the base,
Yeah.
and still is.
Ah.
The artifacts that they had there were all belonged to individual members. I think there were 7 different members that had artifacts there, and they've all
So they
moved.
were their own collectors in their own right that put stuff on loan to
Yes.
the museum. Then
Yeah.
now this is of course a collecting show. We talk here about collecting of all things. Now I think I know why people would collect militaria. They're passionate about the subject, whatever it is. What do you see as the most popular type of items that guys like to collect, guys and girls, for militaria?
the weapons.
The weapons, of course,
Yes.
eh?
Yeah,
The stuff that
pistols.
does the most damage.
Yeah, we have weapons dating back to the Boer War.
The Boer War.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that with that was South Africa, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's a Martini Henry, and very, very desirable.
That's a rifle, a Henry rifle?
Yes.
Wow.
And Jim, so the stuff in your museum, how does most of that stuff come to you? Do people donate that? Do you go out looking for
Yeah, or
it?
is it still those collectors all piling their stuff together like it was over here?
Yeah. When the base moved out, it left a void here. The Canadian Military Engineer Museum moved down to New Brunswick, Gagetown, New Brunswick. And
That's not across the street. For those who aren't Canadian, that's about 4,000 miles from here or something? Yeah, other end of a big country.
You need 2 snow blowers to stay alive down there.
So the weapons are the main thing. But I've seen guys collect the uniforms, the helmets. Helmets are always big.
Yeah, especially with kids.
Yeah. I don't, one thing you don't see a lot of is grenades, because typically they're kind of a scary thing to have around, aren't they?
Yes, I think somebody comes across a grenade, they immediately phone the police and they get destroyed.
I have seen the dummy ones, the training ones.
Yes.
That just teach you how to throw that certain amount of weight.
So-
Of course, seriously. But they kind of freak me out. There's maybe too many cartoons of the pin getting pulled.
Yeah,
So-
well, they are scary. If you do find one, take great care, don't touch it,
and call the experts?
call the experts. Yes.
Does that stuff get worse with age? Is it like dynamite? Does it get worse as it gets old and more
Yes.
touchy?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
becomes very sensitive.
You know, we have the fortune here in Canada and in the U.S. that there hasn't been a lot of modern warfare fought on our soil. But you go to places like Europe, and there's still a lot of unexploded bombs buried here, there, and everywhere, and they're still finding them to this day. You know, some 80 years later and whatnot.
In my last 16 years in the military, that is what I did, was bomb disposal.
Wow.
And I spent a total of 12 of those years in Europe.
Jeez.
And they had an absolutely fabulous set of teams that looked after the munitions. And I went on a myriad of courses and learned how to do all of that myself.
Obviously dangerous work, but do you guys learn it to such a degree that you yourself are not really scared when you're in there because you know exactly what you're doing, what you're looking at?
That's correct, yes. There's still the odd surprise, but I've got all my fingers and toes, so
So you must have been very good at it, Jim.
yeah.
And not to bring up bad memories, but did you have any coworkers missing fingers?
Yes,
So some guys were not as lucky all the time. Wow.
yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Back to the collecting thing, 'cause there's a couple of things I wanted to ask Jim about. Jim, of course, our culture in Canada here is not quite as militaristic or gun orientated as in the U.S. And you said that the weapons, of course, are favorites of people. What do you do if someone has a handgun? Say someone has and it's not of antique status, like it came off a pirate ship or something, but say it's something that someone had acquired,
Like a German Luger.
a German Luger or something like that. Is there a process that they can donate that, or what is the process? Because a lot of people have them and they're afraid to. They think, well, if I let anyone know I have it, they're going to take it from me.
Yeah. And that is a great worry. And one of the other great worries was in registering. They don't register those kind of things. We have 2 Lugers that have been donated to us, and a couple of other World War I pistols. I've got a funny story, if you don't mind.
Please.
Oh, we'd love it.
The 2 pistols that came from World War I belonged to an a senior Air Force officer, and he managed to get them while he was in World War I, and he brought them to our museum and said, "Look, Jim, I'm kind of worried about these." He says, "Would you mind if I donate them to your museum?" But he says, "I don't want anybody to know that it was me." And I said, "Okay." So we took them, and I said to him, "I'm going to go down to the washroom. You put the pistols on the table there, and when I come back from the washroom, I expect you to be gone, and then I can say, 'Oh, look, somebody left us 2 pistols.'"
Ah,
So he
Donated
thought
anonymously.
and it shall remain a secret until people watch this show. No, we didn't mention any names.
Actually, it's funny you say that, because that's what I said. The two pistols were there when I came back from the washroom, and I locked them up properly, and then we had them properly made and changed. So
I'm
they could
assuming
be
being a
museum
bomb
items.
disposal guy, you know how to make sure a weapon's clear.
Yeah,
Obviously, a gun's clear.
Yeah.
Check the chamber and whatnot.
So these two were donated. I took them over to our archives personnel, and they were very happy to receive them. And they said, "Well, how did you get them?" I said, "Well, they were just dropped off, and I don't know who left them or anything." And believe it or not, just as we were talking about that, the chap that had left them off walked in the door.
Ah,
And he looked at the table and he said, "Oh, I see you got my pistols."
oh, great. But whoever was there probably pretended they didn't hear that. Is that what I'm guessing?
Unfortunately, no.
Oh, jeez. So what happened?
My reputation went down the tubes.
Oh, well, nobody's going to talk about that here. Cut
Yeah.
everything.
Wait.
Let's back up and erase and start over.
Hold on here, Jim. The fact that you were in the military for 34 years, you probably had your ass chewed out a few times.
Oh, yeah. I became one of those ass chewers, as a matter of fact, before I retired.
Yeah, there you go.
Good for you.
It all goes in a big circle sometimes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, when you're young, you take the crap, and when you're older, you give the crap.
So-
That's just the
Absolutely,
line of the way, the progression.
Jim, do you personally collect? You've got a whole bunch of stuff you can look at there every day. But at your home, do you personally collect a few items, military items?
Yes, I was in Germany for many years, and I've got a small collection of items that have Nazi material in them. But
Of course, a tricky thing these days, isn't it?
it is. I particularly don't want them. I don't want to donate them, and when I go, I don't know what's going to happen to them. I've left instructions.
Yeah, it's a sticky thing. I totally believe that this is history, and that those who don't learn their history are doomed to repeat it. And I don't see any problem with a history lesson. But yes, you have to be absolutely careful with showing any kind of a swastika anywhere. I have a friend actually that had a picture on social media of some models he built, and there was an airplane had a swastika on the tail fin. And he got in Facebook jail over that being somewhere in the background of a picture.
Yeah, we have the Bismarck in our museum, and it's got the swastika, and nobody's ever mentioned it.
Not the real one. I'm assuming this is a model.
But it does float and go around in the water. It's
Yeah.
remote controlled.
It's
Oh, I
pretty
love
neat.
that.
Beautiful.
How big is it?
Oh, probably 3 foot long.
Oh, nice.
Actually, I have a picture of it that I've passed on to our producer extraordinaire.
So you will be able to go to at the Collectors Cast on Instagram and see that picture soon enough.
Yeah.
And by the time this is airing, right now you can see it.
Jim, just going back to that, because so these items that you have, you said a lot of Nazi type items, and you don't want to donate them for eventually for fear of you just want them gone, or what?
Yeah, I don't want them getting into the wrong hands, and that could possibly happen if I were to donate them. We've been broken into a couple of times, and a lot of our bayonets were stolen. There were some weapons were stolen.
Yeah,
the first
bayonets
time.
are another thing that's very collectible. I've come across many over the years, and I've never had problems selling one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so-
we had about 24, and 21 of them were stolen.
Jeez.
And a very kind gentleman came in one day, and he had 12 of them. He had found them next to a homeless person who was selling them for $50.
All of them?
Now, these bayonets were worth in the thousands.
Oh, jeez.
This chap brought them in to us, and he said, I see there's some markings on here. Do you want to check to see if they happen to be the ones that you stole? And sure enough, every one of them had our engraved marking on it. So we're very pleased to have got those back.
Not often when theft happens like that, not often do you get a happy ending like that.
No, well, with the weapons, we got nothing back.
Well, thanks to that
Yeah,
person. That
I guess, and that's like you said, the weapons thing. I have a little bit of I have little more than a little bit of a fascination with weapons, but I like collecting fighting weapons, even more modern fighting weapons. Unfortunately, our government of the day is making it almost impossible to even collect those as a sportsman or a collector or anything. And so that's one thing. When I was down at the museum the other day to speak with you, I took a few pictures of the weapons you have there, and that was really, really nice to see. Another thing that I don't want to give away the whole museum, because I want to really, Jim, I want to really encourage people who live in the lower mainland of British Columbia, Canada, and in the Chilliwack area. For gosh sakes, go downtown Chilliwack, pop into the museum. It's absolutely wonderful.
That's on Wellington, right?
Yep,
Wellington Street.
and buy
on the one way.
And here's buy a membership to the museum. Buy a 1-year membership. It's $10, and
It helps them keep doing this wonderful thing that they do.
And you know, when I bought my membership, Jim, I immediately, and I felt even more of a connection in that little instant. There, I said, "Wow, okay, now I'm a part of this," and that was really a nice feeling.
Good.
But I just wanted to mention something about that you had in there. I saw there is a weapon that looked like it came off of an airplane, and it's all bent and.
Yeah, that's a very sad story, actually. In 1945, in the summer of 1945, this airplane had 11 British airmen on board, and they took off out of Abbotsford. It was a B-24 Liberator, and it had numerous 50 caliber machine guns on board. They took off and they flew up in very bad weather. They should not have actually been flying, but the weather turned extremely bad, and the tallest mountain in the Cham Range is called Mount Welch.
Okay.
And this plane hit the top of that mountain.
Probably couldn't see it in the conditions. Yeah.
No, they were definitely off course, and they were having trouble. Their home station couldn't get a hold of them, so for numerous days they kept trying, and they sent search parties out. They were flying over all of British Columbia trying to find this airplane, and 20-some days later they found it. Mm-hmm. And it was spread all over the place, and a whole group of engineers and a chaplain from the Vancouver area and several young cadets went up into the mountain, and they found the remains, and they buried them appropriately, gathered them all together. Unfortunately, that area was prone to flooding, and over the years it got washed away. And a lot of the stuff that was there in memory has gone downriver, I guess you'd call it. Mm-hmm. Then another group of cadets got together, and they said, "Well, we're going to go up there and tidy it up and clean it up and see what we can do."
Oh, nice.
And they did, and they found this. They brought 3 50 caliber machine guns down that were in the crash, and they're horribly rusted and twisted and bent
That'd be
from
a
the
big,
crash.
just getting those down the mountain would not be easy.
It's very heavy, yeah. So I know that one of the chaps that carried the one we have, and he's a very fit, strapping young man, and it was a struggle for him to get it down the mountain, and we really appreciate it. They got it down, and they handed it over to us, and at a meeting we were having, and I'd been doing some work on the new monument that we were going to put up. Mm-hmm. So in thanks to our society for doing that, we were given that particular machine gun, and it brings a tear to my eye just thinking about it.
But wonderful that they were able to.
And I've sent a photo of that gun, that weapon, to our producer Aiden as well. Excellent. And yeah, it's going to be. We'll be able to put that up on our Instagram site, and people see it. But I don't want that to stop you from going down to the museum and seeing that thing in person.
Military Museum. Go see Jim. He's just sitting there waiting for you. Sam's waiting by the door. Hey, you know what? We're a little out of time here, but I want to thank you personally for coming on. And
You're
thanks
welcome.
to Sam for coming on.
Yeah.
And you've just been wonderful and educating, and we hope to see you again sometime soon.
Okay, can I put a plug in for our website?
Absolutely,
Go
Jim.
right ahead.
cfbchilliwack.com.
cfbchilliwack.com. You heard it from the man himself.
Yeah, all small letters. And we have a site that's up in the clouds.
Okay.
And,
Nobody's sure how that magic works anymore. Yeah, but well, the young people do, but we don't understand either.
And of course, our museum, which is in what used to be Graham's Gifts, we're in the B section of it now. There's we're on the corner of Mill and Wellington.
I've been by it a few
5,
times.
9,
It does stick out.
1,
You guys have some
5,
good.
B.
You guys have some good signage and whatnot. I always see it when I drive by.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody, this has been Jim Harris. We thank him for his service. We thank him for coming on. And this is the Collector's Cast. We'll be back right after this. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks to Jim for coming on. What a nice guy.
Oh, super guy, and a super service that he's done. Thanking him.
Yeah. Oh,
Praise
yeah.
for his service to our
you know,
country.
I always, when I see a military man in full regalia or woman, I always say thank you for your service.
Yeah, and you know, here's Jim. You know, after all those years of service, he's still putting in service. You know, at the museum,
Keeping the memories alive.
keeping the memories alive, keeping people informed. And hey, like I said, you know, many times, go down to that museum. Support them. It's very inexpensive to
couple
buy.
bucks to walk in or something.
Well,
yeah.
also you can buy a 1-year membership to the museum for $10.
Oh, geez. Well, there you go.
So it's the most fantastic donation you can make.
Nice.
And then head out there every time you get a chance.
I think even sending away to get a Justice League membership is more than that.
Probably. Yeah.
So anyway, what we like to do near the end of the show is we like to do a little trivia. And I understand you have a military trivia question for me.
Well, I do, Clint.
And I'm probably not going to be able to answer it because I'm not the super military knowledge guy. I've got nothing against the military. I would have served had my name been called. I always think about that. I just never.
Yeah, and myself as well. Probably one of the very few regrets of my life was I
Didn't
wished
do any
I had
military service?
been done actual military service.
That's kind of me too. You
the
feel like you would
military.
have done your part that way.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank goodness guys like Jim and like our grandparents and people that did go out and give the big sacrifice. We don't have to fight, and that's really that probably would make them the happiest out of anything.
Exactly. Okay, trivia
yes,
question.
yes, please.
I got one for you.
Hit me up.
Okay, so
Did I already need
the
it?
most vastly produced assault rifle is the what?
I'm going to guess AK-47.
Exactly.
Okay.
What does...
That's not the question?
No, that's not the question.
Here I nailed it and everything.
Mikhail Kalashnikov
Okay.
invented that rifle.
Mikhail
And what does the 47 stand for?
AK-47. I'm going to think, well, they didn't exist in 1947. They're not that old, are they? That's about the most obvious thing I can think of is the year they came out.
Ding, ding, ding.
Really?
Yes.
1947 is when he invented the AK-47?
You've got a bingo.
It's a bingo! Who said that? There's a...
I think that's from
Inglourious
Bastards.
And then,
Absolutely.
Brad Pitt tells the colonel, you don't say it like that. It's just say bingo. Yeah.
That's right. So,
Anyway, so 1947? I actually got
1947.
that right. Okay, I got a military trivia question for you. Where did Hitler keep his armies? In his sleeveys. Mike, I can tell. I've been friends with this guy so long. I can really tell when he wants to punch me. It's evident. I can see it in his eyes.
Oh, boy.
He just wants to lean over and give me one
Oh,
of the
boy.
chops.
Maybe just an elbow.
Yeah. But before we go, did we get a question yet?
Oh, listener question. Yes.
Let's hear from a listener.
Jillian from
Jillian.
Kamloops, British Columbia,
Kamloops,
Canada.
a town I've been in many, many times.
El Kamloops.
El Kamloops. And Jillian, that's
Jillian.
a good name. It's like Gillian Anderson from The X-Files. It's not her, is it? She
No.
doesn't live in Kamloops, does she?
She does not.
Okay, different Jillian, everybody. For those of you confused.
Question is, Jillian would like to know, what is your favorite historical army?
Ooh. Like if we could do like fantasy football and like have an army fight another guy's army?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let's do it like a game. You tell me who you'd pick, and I'll say who I'd put against you. I already got one in my head. Should I say it? And then you see who you can put up against them. No, it's not fair, because what if mine's from the old days, so they won't have. I'm just
Well,
gonna tell you.
okay.
I think the Mongol horde was probably the most unstoppable force in history, just about, when it came to conquering. And when they came to town, you were basically screwed, and would fall under their swords and rule and everything else.
Well, I was going to say that as well.
Oh, were you really?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
But but I'm going to go to a.
You're going to see my Mongol horde and raise me.
I would say 101st Airborne.
Ooh, 101st Airborne, a very famous. Well, you know what? I've heard that term so many times. 101st Airborne. What do you know about it? Tell me.
And I'm
educate me a
also
little bit.
wait. I just also, we're kind of talking divisions in the Army, but I also want to give a huge shout out to the Canadian Black Watch.
Oh, okay, because they're the badasses, right?
Well, yes, they were.
Or were,
So, yes,
Are they like? Would they be equivalent of like SEAL Team 6 kind of thing?
yes,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
There's
and
another division.
they did a lot of the dirty fighting in
Uh-huh.
Europe in the Second World War.
Well, and it's funny because you don't think of Canada as having much of an army, but apparently our guys, when they do competitions, country against country, the Canadian Army guys do very well.
But also our contribution in the Second World War and the First World War was immense.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Right? I mean,
Vimy Ridge, and there's lots of stories of Canadians being involved. Absolutely. So yeah, you're right. The Canadian Army actually has this all this awesome. But I remember when it was like made fun of. I remember a Canadian comedian. I won't mention his name because I don't remember what it was. Making a joke, and he said that the Canadian Army's first line of defense was a speed bump on the beach. So, I'm Canadian. I'm not laughing at us. I'm laughing with us.
I might have punched him.
Yeah, you might have. Anyway.
I might have, yeah.
You know, I think we've covered militaria pretty good today on our Collector's Cast, and hopefully everybody's enjoyed listening to us yammer. Oh.
Jillian, thanks for your question.
Jillian, thank you so much. And yeah, we want to thank Jillian up in Kamloops, and we want to get all our listeners to send us questions like that. They come to feedback@thecollectorscast.com. Don't forget to write us.
All right.
Mike, you've been a wonderful co-host.
Well, thanks, Clint.
I've been myself. This has been the Collector's Cast. Good evening, everybody.
See you soon.